Well, afternoon everybody. We're getting round, or we've got round to video 8 in the series, Religion or Spirituality. And sorry for the delay, but I think the world's got other things to consider. Anyway, here goes. Well, some of my readers will remember Sunday school. I don't know about you, but I found a couple of hours out of a precious weekend a total pain. But there's aspects of going to Sunday school I quite appreciated. I quite appreciated some of the sessions. The essential outcomes of this experience were that I found Jesus and aspects of Christianity very appealing, but the doctrinal, literal interpretation of the scriptures was a turn-off, and some of the attitudes of the teachers. But anyway, perhaps this is where I got my love of churches and cathedrals from. Yes, I've met many people call themselves Christians who are nothing of the sort, but I've met and got to know practicing Christians for whom I have the highest regard. And given my upbringing, I was brought up in a very white, traditional, working class area, but I missed out on other religions. I'm not even sure there were any. However, I've always been impressed by Muslims who embrace many of the positives of their faith. And of course, every faith has positives in it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a faith. My chosen path of personal development has introduced me to many aspects of Buddhism, and of course, what matters most, spirituality, and I'm going to discuss that further below. Well, there are a minority of hypocrites who masquerade as, I hate this word, devout. It basically means superior to you, and you're usually sneered at. Because many people of faith, and most churches, contain the energies of compassion and the higher ideals of the vicar or the priest or the pastor and the flock. And I know it can be argued religion is the opium of the people, but I've covered in great depth my total rejection of atheism. And I've attended a few spiritualist church services, which for the uninitiated actually contains the saying of prayers and singing hymns. It's not for me, I'm afraid. It's not my thing. However, a couple of Christmases I've gone to carol services in traditional Church of England venues, and I've got to be honest, I've enjoyed them. But again, I'm not into the formal prayers and hymns. That's just me, because I've never been a fan of rituals. And this piece is intended to shine a light on spirituality and to encourage those who've perhaps been subjected to dogma and nonsense about God to revisit their belief in a higher power, because that's what it's all about. And I'm not going to go down the route of condemning formal religion, but of course there are huge, what can I put it, dark episodes, in particular from the Catholic Church. They have truly appalling records of murder, genocide, and other awful things. The CATHARS, just check out the CATHARS and see the Church of Love that's on my website. Persecution and other things. And of course, often it's backed up by the fact there's a jealous, fire and brimstone dispensing, white-bearded man sat on a cloud, and this person decides who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. Well, that's not for me, I'm afraid. I think the Bible's an amazing book, but it's not to be taken literally. It's full of metaphors and allegories. And I'm sure the same applies to the Quran and the Torah, neither of which I'm familiar with. In my world, there's one God, one organising intelligence. People call it the universal source. It doesn't matter. But the idea that one's religion's God is better than another religion's God is total anathema, and is the justification for wars, of course. So here's hoping this is now obvious that I'm reinforcing the idea that there is everything to be gained by belief in a higher power, but little to be gained by following rigid, exclusive and primitive dogma. You'll find many examples of real miracles in all faiths. I mean, the persecution of Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and indeed any formal religion by any government is genocide. And it's not an accident that the totalitarian regimes who wish to banish religion have a pretty obvious agenda, and it's not an accident. The information war currently going on in America and all around the world is a spiritual war. It's a war against faith. Closing churches. I mean, my God, the US Constitution doesn't even prohibit that. So what's going on there? And it hasn't stopped many states from persecuting pastors and religious leaders. Personally, I find the closing of churches in this country one of the most disturbing, distressing and totalitarian of all the actions taken to justify what's going on at the moment. Oh, and by the way, in case you haven't realised, God doesn't wear a mask. I've no wish to address the short-sightedness of a worldview that describes the wonders of creation an accident. Even Darwin rejected his own thesis. And I'm no fan of Richard Dawkins. And I'd ask you to look at what's wrong with the Ten Commandments. And if you can't get beyond them, perhaps start with the Beatitudes. I've framed the Beatitudes, they're on my wall. And I've already mentioned the CATHARS Church of Love, which is phenomenal. It's on this website. And these are just three things of guiding principles that have been deliberately lost or ignored. My next book after Love Heals is called You Are Gods. And Jesus said the same thing in a different way. My own experience with accessing a higher power to heal has been nothing short of phenomenal. I have been and still am very close to incredible healers, all of whom believe in God. Let's just put to one side the bearded man on the cloud. But if it works for you, stay with it. How do we visualize God? How can we relate to God? And there are many different definitions of spirituality. The one I prefer most is connectedness. Connectedness to all of life, past, present and future. Connectedness to the divine, to source, to the universe. And of course, you, dear viewer, are obviously someone who is searching for meaning. Anyone who searches for meaning will struggle if they limit their search to the material world. Survey after survey suggests that over 90% of the world's population believe in some form of higher power. All I can say is thank God for that. And is that because of indoctrination, overactive missionaries, or too many religious channels on television? It's obvious. It's obvious to me because we have an unquenchable thirst wired in, which drives us to understand this incarnation and to make sense of it. One of the most amazing books I've ever read is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This was an Austrian psychiatrist who was imprisoned in Auschwitz, and he survived. Many books have the potential to change your life, and certainly Viktor Frankl's book's one of them. My own scientific bias, skepticism and insatiable curiosity have all conspired to weaken my belief in a loving God. Some of you will remember the REM, the group the REM, that their song Losing My Religion. I would suggest maybe a better title might be Losing My Connection. And yet despite my other beliefs, I have a knowing about God, despite the dips. Life has a purpose, and you have a purpose. God, in quotes, is not responsible for wars, famine, lack, disease, and all the horrors that beset us. We have free will. Otherwise, what's the point in being here? We're just robots, so we don't need to queue up for the microchip. We've already got it within us. So, let us exercise our free will. But maybe free will comes with a happy meal and a vaccine. Many clues have been left throughout this video series that we might actually be angels in human form. Jesus stated we could all do greater things than him, and he was the Son of God, if you believe that. Doesn't matter whether you do or not. And I personally have been blessed to see many miracles during my life, and I've been party to some of them. And when I write, most times I leave the computer, look back on what I've just written, and know I'm just a vehicle for the best stuff. And okay, I've spent many years honing my skills as a writer, but I can never take credit for most of the inspired material. I'm going to leave you with a paragraph from my book Love Heals. To repeat, your higher self is your eternal soul, and it's where your truth resides, where your connection to an organising intelligence dwells. It's the source of divine guidance, and it's the place from where all things are possible. It is your escape route from your conditioning, your lifelong hope and humanity-crushing programming. It's your escape from mediocrity, despair and predictability. And it's your connection to all sentient, living beings. Do we have any takers? Namaste, love to you all. Have a great time and have a great Christmas. I think this will be the last one before then.